late Professor Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe. I want to welcome us to this evening of tribute in his honor. Because of circumstances that we're all aware of, this has to be online. I want to appreciate everyone that is online already. Because of time, it will be tedious to mention every name, but I must say that everyone is very important and you're all well recognized. Particularly permit me to appreciate Emeritus Professor Nini Briggs. Good evening, sir. You're welcome, sir. Professor Shokumbi, Professor Akinkugbe.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Professor
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, thank you.
Dr. Titilola Brito, you are welcome, ma. Dr. Senab Imam, good to see you, ma.
Thank you, good evening.
Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, Professor Iduwola Yinka.
Yeah, good evening.
And
good evening.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sure we will have another opportunity.
Everyone is lying. The same media Democrats are doctors. Not all
you have to meet
that we are told to trust. Chuck Wooler's all the election and keeping the economy from coming back. Which is
I have muted everybody. So, Emeritus Professor Oluwole Akande, good evening, sir. And every dignitaries right online already, thank you very much for joining us. We sincerely appreciate this privilege that you are given unto us. Without wasting more time, permit me to invite the President of Ibadan College of Medicine Alumni Association, Professor Adeniyi Fatai. Fatai Adeniyi, I beg your pardon, to please take his welcome address. ICOMAA President, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oluwashola, Secretary General. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, Professor Abel Idowu Olayinka, the Provost, Professor Iyo Olapade Olaopa, the Chief Medical Director, University College Hospital, Professor Jesse Abiodun Otegbayo, the Deputy Provost, Professor Bafunke Donloye, and of course, our mother, Professor Folashade Akinkugbe. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all on behalf of the Ibadan College of Medicine Alumni Association, on behalf of all our members and exco, and on behalf of all our friends and friends of the college and of the University College Hospital, I thank you all for joining us on this webinar in celebration of life of our very own distinguished personality, a father to us all, a doyen of medicine in Nigeria and beyond, Emeritus Professor Oladipo Olujimi Akinkugbe, CFR. Professor Akinkugbe means a lot to us whenever we mention his name. And sincerely, as a very distinguished personality, we all have different views that we hold about Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe. For some of us, we see him as a former Dean of Medicine in the then Faculty of Medicine of the University of Ibadan. For some of us, he was a Vice Chancellor of University of Ilorin and Ahmadu Bello University. To some of us, he was Chairman of Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board. To some of us, he was, of course, the Chairman Board of Management of University College Hospital. And of course, for some of us, we also see him as a multiple title holder at the traditional institution of Ondo land. He held so many titles across Ondo land and Ijebu and all of that. And of course, he was also a commander of the Federal Republic. And to some of us, he was just a father, a friend, a mentor. Whatever you can think of, Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe was a multidimensional individual. We see him, when we want to talk about him, it's quite difficult to begin to talk about Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe in past tense. And that is responsible for the way I have been constructing my tenses. But to us in the Ibadan College of Medicine Alumni Association, Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe was our pioneer president. He actually took the mantle of leadership of the Alumni Association about 21 years ago, when the terrain was very unpredictable. But in his usual style and fearless manner, he took up the challenge. And today we are celebrating as a body that he nurtured as the very first president of the Alumni Association. And so that is why we are celebrating him today, because we really do not have any reason to sorrow or to mourn his demise. He, as a distinguished personality and someone with a lot of impact in the academia and in medicine globally, Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe had made a lot of impact. And so we can confidently today celebrate him. The Ibadan College of Medicine Alumni Association was very lucky to have him as stepping in as the very first president, and of which we have so far today had 6 presidents having to coordinate the Alumni Association, all of them distinguished in their own respective ways. But Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe, as you all know, took up this mantle of leadership and took the Alumni Association to a point of excellence. And that is why today, the Alumni Association as a body, and of course, by the support of all the members across the globe, have been able to make significant contributions to the development of the teaching and clinical terrain of the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, and University College Hospital. So today, we are delighted that you are all able to join us to celebrate this man of honor, our hero, our mentor, our pathfinder. Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe did not leave us at any point in time, even when he stepped aside as the president. He was always available for us, giving us some wise counsel at all of the times that we required that. And I am very happy to announce that even this year, he was actively involved in one of our programs. He came around, attended in person, and stood to the end of the program. And when we're climbing the stairs, the flight of staircase, I remember he asked me, just hold my hand, because I was quite worried that he was going to get up to the third floor. And he did that so well, you know. So he was very dedicated to our alumni association. And that is why today, why we miss him so well, so much, but we are very happy with the fact that he had been able to touch a lot of lives, not only in Nigeria, but globally. And at this point, the only thing we will request for is for God to keep his family in good health and keep Mama Folashade Akinkugbe for us and all the children, grandchildren, and the entire family. Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe had done so well as an individual, and we celebrate him. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will have to stop here and then hand over to the Secretary General, who will go over and coordinate the program as we go along. Once again, I thank you all and God bless.
Thank you, sir, my president. Right away, I would like to invite our Vice Chancellor, Professor Abel Idowu Olayinka, for his opening speech. Mr. Vice Chancellor.
Yeah, thank you, the General Secretary. I like to adopt the existing protocol that has been established and taking cognizance of the family of our late Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe and all the dignitaries here, especially Emeritus Professor Nemi Briggs, former Vice Chancellor, University of Port Harcourt. I think just like the president of ICOMAA mentioned, our late highly revered Professor Akinkugbe was like an elephant. So you can describe him in so many ways, whether as president of ICOMAA, foundation president, or Dean of Medicine in UI 1970 to 1974, Vice Chancellor at Ilorin of Zaria, and among others. So my speech this evening will just be just the personal recollection that I have about him, which I cherish so much, not so much about his national awards. I mean, you know, he had 2 national honors, Commander of the Order of Niger, Commander of the Federal Republic. I understand one is along the line of the president. The CFR, CON is along the line of the vice president. They had both. So you know the kind of person he was. So I will just go through the speech, which ordinarily I've actually published on my Facebook page earlier this morning. So I also know that we have a fairly long list of people who are going to give tributes. So I can skip part of it, but I can also circulate it to the ICOMAA president. So my last physical meeting with Baba Akinkugbe was on the 28th of April this year. He said I should come and see him. So I went over to Yaganku at the Little Summit. And as I entered his bedroom, it was obvious he was not feeling too well. I proceeded to greet him and he showered so much encomium on me. He spoke about university governance in general and expressed the sadness at the ongoing strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities. In one of our more recent discussions on the matter, I had requested him to contact the Chief of Staff to the President, that's to President Buhari, on possible ways of arriving at a truce between the federal government and ASU. At that meeting that I had with him, he informed me of the likelihood of an overseas trip to either South Africa or Germany to seek medical attention. He also informed me that he had total confidence in the medical personnel at the University College Hospital Ibadan, but that they are handicapped in terms of available facilities. I must have spent about an hour of good quality time with Professor Akinkugbe before I departed. And as we speak, I'm here to come to terms with the grim reality that the special one that I respectfully called Baba Akinkugbe is no more. However, why do you just call him Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe? Because some of his students are even Emeritus Professors. So he's Emeritus Professor of Emeritus Professors. He called me on phone just exactly 10 days before his demise, that he was back in Lagos. He told me that he was still recuperating and that he will return to Ibadan the following week. He added that he would let me know as soon as he got to Ibadan. And I eagerly look forward to hearing back from him. Unfortunately, that was not to be. I received an inquiry from a senior academic of the University of Ibadan, mid-afternoon of Monday, 15th of June, 2020, asking me whether I've heard about the transition of Baba Akinkugbe. I dismissed the satanic news. But all the same, I had to put a phone call to Professor Isaac Adewale, a former student of Professor Akinkugbe and his junior friend. He informed me that he too was unaware of such a development, but he promised to inquire. I think he had to call Professor Abiodun Ilesami. So Professor Adewale, in the final analysis, reverted soon after to me, only to confirm the sad and most unfortunate bad news. Spontaneously, I broke into tears, which conveyed the depth of my anguish. I later went across to the Department of Anatomy, University of Ibadan, where the remains of Baba Akinkugbe were to be deposited. I already met members of the Akinkugbe nuclear families, 2 sons, and some senior colleagues, including Professor Adewale, Professor Temitayo Shokunbi, and Professor Abiodun Ilesami, as well as the head of anatomy, Dr. Uweye. Meanwhile, the social media was already awash with the news of the transition of Professor Akinkugbe without waiting for an official announcement by the family. It was indeed the end of an era. He was a very humane person with a keen sense of justice and fairness, as he always insisted on equity and meritocracy. As we all know, I was a candidate for the position of Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan 5 years ago. I was advised to contact him to give me a reference letter. So he was quite willing to do that, which he did. Then he reminded me that when the university was established, there were only 3 foundation faculties, arts, science, and medicine. That, in fact, the way he put it was so dramatic. He said the Vice Chancellorship of University of Ibadan had been monopolized by medicine and history. He didn't even say faculty of art, he said history. But of course, when you check Department of History, out of 120 departments, Department of History alone had produced 3 vice chancellors. So he said he felt science could have an attempt at applying for the position of vice chancellor. So he very recommended me, and I thank God that I got it. Then beyond that, over the course of the last 4.5 years, he had been ever so supportive. He would always call me to say whether there was any problem, and whether there was any problem, whether student crisis, ASU or NASU, and the rest. So yeah, he was ever so supportive. And I said, blessed are the peacemakers. Where I come from, there is a proverb which roughly translates to that we cannot have elders in the community while the youths are disagreeing among themselves. Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe was a peacemaker, a conciliator, and arbitrator par excellence. On at least one occasion, he invited me over to his house, and he also called Professor Banjo and Emeritus Professor Akande to settle some disputes. But of course, it was a family meeting, so no victor, no vanquished. And I keep wondering, why does he call his house Little Summit? Because there's nothing little about the mansion. And President Obasanjo frequents the place. I think when he was going to take us to Lagos last December, he told us that we should not come until 11, that President Obasanjo was going to pay a visit to him. And when we got there, he was just trying to see off President Obasanjo. Professor Abiodun Ilesami was also at that their meeting, which they had behind the closed doors. I was not part of their meeting. I said, what's one thing I admire so much about him is that he will like to put others first. About a year ago, he invited me, and he said he had been wondering why the University of Ibadan never honored the late Professor Lambo, who was Vice Chancellor from 1968, and he had to live under some funny circumstances. Of course, I was just a secondary student at that time. So he asked me whether there was any way the university could honor Professor Lambo, a very great psychiatrist. So invariably we met, and the council and Senate approved that we should name the Senate chamber after him. And that was not until the HOD of psychiatry, Professor Akinkugbe, had given a very nice recommendation. Professor Akinkugbe also supported the recommendation. So invariably, the Senate chamber has been formally named after Professor Lambo. But that was through the effort of Professor Akinkugbe. It never crossed my mind because I never even knew Professor Lambo. I was just informed in secondary school, as at the time he left the vice chancellorship of UI. I never met him, so there was no way I would have known anything about his express. He also told me that in 1975 he had wanted to become vice chancellor at University of Ibadan, but somehow the Mandarins at the council ranked him second. Then the late Professor Tamuno of blessed memory came first. So they said, but at that time, Professor Tamuno was the foundation principal of University College Ilorin in affiliation with the University of Ibadan. So Professor Tamuno had to come back home. He had just completed his deanship of Faculty of Arts before he went to Ilorin. So in the final analysis, the late Professor Tamuno came back to Ibadan as vice chancellor, and Professor Akinkugbe was asked to go and replace him at the University of Ilorin. And he said medicine was not supposed to be part of the initial program at University of Ilorin. But he said himself, a former dean of medicine at University of Ibadan, a notable professor of medicine, how could he now preside over a university where all they will be doing is education and geology? So he had to use his leverage with the governor of Kwara State and the head of state, Murtala Mohammed, for them to approve the medical program for University of Ilorin. And of course, we know that the University of Ilorin, their medical program is highly regarded as we speak, thanks to the solid foundation laid by our departed emeritus Professor Akinkugbe. And then they moved him, it was under the military. They used to transfer people as if it was a secondary school setting. They transferred him to Ahmadu Bello University's area. That the students protested against him. Almost all the students who protested against him, they were rascals. But today now they are governors. And at any time he met them, he asked them what was the reason why they were protesting against him. He said they didn't even know. They were just part of the mob. But we thank God he escaped from Zaria and came back to Ibadan. Maybe late 79, early 80, 1980. And of course, he remained here till he retired in maybe 1995 or thereabouts. Then he was later named an emeritus professor. And one project that was very close to his heart was the Akinkugbe Kidney Center. And that was the reason why he took us to General Danjuma in December last, I think December 19th. Before then, General Danjuma had already paid 324 million naira into the account of the university to support kidney research. So we went to Lagos with the Dean of Clinical Sciences and the Director of the University Advancement Center to go and say thank you to General T.Y. Danjuma. That was in December. He also donated his library to the University of Ibadan as if he knew the end was near. And that's the Akinkugbe Corner, which he commissioned, I think, January this year. So he was so committed to the University of Ibadan. Like I said, he was a man of many parts. He came here as a student. Then he completed his medical education in the UK. He came back to Nigeria. Then became a lecturer here in 1965. So I wouldn't know how it was done. But 3 years later, 1968, he became a professor. Under my watch as vice chancellor, you cannot become a professor within 3 years. I'm sorry. It has to take minimum of 11 years. But then he was a pioneer, and because of his seminal contribution, it didn't take him quite long. And I also understand that there was a time he was acting as head of department of medicine, dean of the faculty, and also acting vice chancellor. Himself had cracked this joke before that he would originate a memo from his office as head of medicine, pass it to the dean of medicine, the same person will approve it, then come over to you, and then there was no traffic. So within 30 minutes, the memo from the department to the vice chancellor's office will have been approved. As a pioneer. So he was a lover of a university tradition. We always complain that our order of proceedings is too voluminous, that we should do something about it. Also, university calendar, that how come we publish it every other year? I didn't tell him that it was because of lack of funds. That his own university that is over 600 years old, Oxford, that they publish their calendar annually. How come Ibadan is only 72 years old that you cannot publish your calendar every year? So he was ever so committed to the University of Ibadan. Another place that he was so committed to was Government College, Akwata. That was where Wole Soyinka was his classmate, Dr. Christopher Kolade, also his classmate, the late Dr. Ibel Gubadia, who was the chairman of INEC, also the late emeritus professor, who had a double first class honors in physics. He was later our dean of science. Also, Governor Odunloyo was maybe 2 years behind him. And he always joked with Professor Banjo that Professor Banjo attended a very good school, Dobe College. but that somehow Igbobi College has never produced a Nobel Prize winner, unlike a government college. I mean, because they are friends, so they always crack jokes. So before I close this short address, it's becoming long now. We commiserate with our mama, Professor Folashade Akinkugbe, who was Professor Akinkugbe's wife of 55 years. Because when I went over to their house yesterday, I inquired from her the year they got married. She told me 1965. So meaning that they've been married for 55 short years. Their lovely children and grandchildren, the entire Akinkugbe family, over the irreparable loss. Baba Akinkugbe will remain forever in our hearts. While alive, he gave of his treasures, his time and talents to the University of Ibadan. We wish Baba Akinkugbe eternal rest. And in his 1998 convocation lecture at the University of Ibadan, Professor Akinkugbe enjoined the nation as follows, and I quote him: "Central to the decay and desecration is funding, and does not need a gift of prophetic wisdom to surmise that unless this is addressed positively and aggressively, there can be no turnaround in the status of Nigerian universities. The greatest tribute all of us and our great country, Nigeria, can pay this illustrious son of Africa and eminent citizen of the world is to heed his advice of the need for a significant improvement in funding, education, and health in Nigeria post the COVID-19 pandemic." I, on a personal note, I'd always thought that Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe, benefactor and God, will live forever.
I don't want to show my picture.
It was unthinkable that we will someday have to cope without his wise counsel. Nonetheless, to live in the hearts of those we love is not to die. Baba Akinkugbe will live in our hearts forever. It was a thing of pride for me as a person to be counted among his numerous academic children, many of whom are established academic giants and notable professionals in their own rights. In today's Punch, I saw an advertorial by his siblings, Baba Akinkugbe, Mama Fatiruti, and others. They said that Professor Akinkugbe was a gift, the gift of their family, so Nigeria. And for us at the University of Ibadan, Baba Akinkugbe was our own gift to the whole world. So good night, Baba. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that very short address, as you put it, sir. Thank you, sir. Without wasting more time, I would like to invite my provost, the provost of the College of Medicine, the foremost College of Medicine south of Sahara, Professor E.O. Olapade Olaopa, for his own short address. My professor.
Thank you so much. It's always a bit of a shock when one has to deliver these tributes for one's teachers. Let me start by. Can you hear me? Let me start by. Yes, let me start by expressing the commiserations of the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, to the family of our dear teacher. Professor Akinkugbe. It remains for me as the provost of the College of Medicine to express our great joy to have been the primary recipient of Professor Akinkugbe's intellectual largesse. Quite a lot of people were taught under him, and those who he taught have taught other people too. We all would remember Professor Akinkugbe for one thing or the other, but most of us will remember him for his erudition. And we need we need to remember that he had prepared us significantly to cope with this day by ensuring that he passed on his numerous traits to numerous people. We are also quite grateful to the fact that he had left a great volume of scholarship for us to learn from in the years to come. we cannot end without talking about his wit. For those of us who had been at one or the other of his many occasions that he chaired, we would remember that he always left us with a joke or two, however serious the occasion was. So we step forward as we must to go on from where he left off, knowing fully well that as we celebrate his life, his great works will forever remain with us. We thank ICOMAA for arranging this evening. We are grateful that as the pioneer president of ICOMAA, ICOMAA has continued to go from strength to strength, and we assure the family that we would ensure that his name is not forgotten. As we may recall, the Clinical Sciences Building have been named after him, and this has recently been renovated and will be commissioned by the Vice Chancellor within the next 2 weeks. It remains for me to wish my great teacher good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, my provost. Thank you for that very short address. The Chief Medical Director of University College Hospital Ibadan sent a video tribute. I would try and attempt to share that and say, I hope we'll be able to,
from his friendship,
hear him very well.
Prof. Akinkugbe was my teacher of my teachers, my mentor, a role model, and my benefactor. In the 80s, Prof. Akinkugbe taught me as an undergraduate, and we all admired him because, because of his voice, his Queen's English, and his depth of knowledge of the subject matter whenever we had ward rounds, bedside tutorials, and any form of teachings. And in fact, I must confess that I decided to specialize in interpreting with him. He appeared to be somewhat late. And later on, I was going to contest for the post of Chief Medical Director of the University College.
You're no longer hearing him. We can't hear. We are not hearing. We lost audio.
Dear apologies, I understand that the audio is not clear, so kindly permit me to put a hold to that tribute. I think the recording wasn't very good. My apologies, sir. Right now, we would like to invite the past ICOMAA presidents to give their tributes, and the first on our list is the second ICOMAA worldwide president, our own emeritus Professor E.O. Akande. I would like to invite Baba to give his address. Emeritus Professor Akande, sir.
They are not tributes. Lost audio. You can find it.
Not online yet. Well, permit me to invite Dr. BGK Ajayi. Oh, I think Baba is back online. Emeritus Professor Akondisa.
Yeah, what do you want to one yellow or looking?
I can't get Dr. BGK Ajayi, sir. I can't get Dr. Ajayi. I think I will invite Professor Udaola Shokunbi.
Everyone we surely miss.
Professor Shokunbi, ma, I've unmuted you, ma.
Good evening. All protocols duly observed. It's a rare opportunity to be able to say a few words. We are celebrating the life of our teacher, a life well spent, a life of intense cerebral activity, a life of unparalleled administrative prowess, a life of excellent medical practice, a life of a patriot, a life of an unusual readiness to serve the nation, a life of intense commitment to loyalty to his friends, a life of exemplary love and leadership within the Ondo Kingdom, a life of incredible optimism about Nigeria's future, a life of a very patient and calm teacher and clinician, a life continually monitoring the progress of his students, a life of being a big fish in a small ocean, that is Nigeria, as well as being a bigger fish in the big waters of the international arena. A life of commitment to UCH ideals. When he was the board chairman, I was the deputy CMD ICOMAA over a period of 4 years. I learned a lot about his efficient style of running the meetings. The meetings could last from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. sometimes. He never complained about tiredness, while some younger ones like myself could be found yawning at these meetings. He will lace his contributions with Oxford English and quotations from several books. A thoroughbred academic whose species are not common in many institutions. I was also a member of the Presidential Project Implementation Committee, IEPPIC, established by President Obasanjo. Professor Akinkugbe was the chairman for about 8 years. The mandate was to refurbish the 16 teaching hospitals to a 5-star teaching hospital. He also talked about his concept of quaternary hospitals. I am glad that I was there at the ceremony, which he tagged hanging the stethoscope, a unique event with no similar event in the whole wide world. He was always asking after the welfare of her family, including visiting us after a sad event, along with Mrs. Carrington, the wife of the American diplomat. His words that day were very soothing. I join others in thanking God for giving us Professor Akinkugbe. I must also thank God that he gave him a very patient and loving wife. May Baba's soul rest in perfect peace. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. I appreciate your comments on behalf of ICOMAA Worldwide. I understand our former president, Dr. BGK Ajayi, is right seated with the current president. Please permit me to invite Dr. BGK Ajayi to make his comment.
Good evening, everybody. And my special commiseration with the family of Professor Akinkugbe, and especially his wife and sister. As I look at his photograph, I ask myself, how can this man be dead? Memories of the last few days before he fell ill surged through my mind. He was a teacher. Yes, my teacher. But with so great emotions going through my mind, in my confusion, what he taught me in medicine pales into insignificance. My memory is blurred and fleeting, but I remember vividly the great virtues and values that he held, espoused, and taught through the practical examples of his life. I look at his picture again. The smile on his face is familiar, confident, yet exuding a great warmth and humility, reassuring and witty. Many have said so many things about him, and will still say so many things about him. I will dwell on the humility and how unfair our nation has been to great leaders, especially in medicine and other professions. To put things in the right perspective, let me restate what should be obvious to everyone. Not
I suspect the
but
network is
maybe
bad.
not to all. I was born just, but that was about one day.
I think we have lost Dr. BGK Ajayi. So,
hello? Hello? Can you hear me now, please?
allow me to invite Baba
Can you hear me?
Akande to. Okay, I think we have Dr. BGK Ajayi. Please continue, sir. Dr. Ajayi, please.
Can you hear me? Okay. I will go back a bit just in case. How can this man be dead? Memories of the last few days before he fell ill surged through my mind. He was a teacher. Yes, my teacher. But with so great emotions going through my mind, in my confusion, what he taught me melted and fleeting. But I remember vividly the great virtues and values he held, espoused, and taught through the practical examples of his life. I look at his picture again. The smile on his face is familiar, confident, yet exuding great warmth and humility, reassuring and witty. Many have said so many things about him, and will say so many things about him. I will dwell on his humility and how unfair our nation has been to great leaders, especially in medicine and other professions. To put things in the right perspective, let me restate what should be obvious to everyone, but maybe not to all. I was born just a few days after Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe's birthday, but that was about a whole 15 years apart. To ask me to come and see him. He was my teacher, and not just College of Medicine at that time. He inducted There are 10 specific pledges of the oath. The first, I solemnly pledge myself to concentrate my life to the service of humanity. The second, I will give to my teachers the respect and gratitude, which is the come, I want to see you. I was still recovering from the shock of his sudden visit when he said, BGK, I have come to see your opinion on a medical issue of national interest. I was stunned. Me? The head is so far from the heel. As he laid down the facts carefully and succinctly, I knew he was sincere and honest in his quest, not just an endorsement of his personal stand. I admire his humility and honesty of purpose. That was over 20 years ago. And that marked the beginning of our friendship in inverted commas, because I was too young to call him a friend. I felt at home in his presence and tried very much to emulate his virtues and stand by his values. As I look at his photograph again, I see why I can say this man is not dead. He has only changed mortality for immortality. Thomas Campbell said, for to live in the hearts of those we leave behind is not to die. This nation has been unfair to our medical heroes, alive or dead. Our young ones are leaving the country in droves. Is it just because of poor remuneration? Yes and no. We get it completely wrong when we think it is because of remuneration. Yes, because that is probably the sole criteria. Because that is probably the sole criteria by which a Nigerian is judged. It's all class and adulation. When a man makes a hefty sum of money, donates a hefty sum of money to a visible government organization, all he needs to do is to repeat the same 2 or more times to gain attention. To get attention at the highest quarters of government. For his efforts, he gets a national honor. If he's a politician, there are outcries for institutions, often which predate his existence, to be named after him. No medical doctor. We have
Sir, Emeritus Professor Condesa.
Thank you very much.
You can
It
go ahead
is
with your speech, sir.
very hard for us to come to terms with our mentor, brother, friend, senior colleague, Emeritus Professor Oladipo Akinkugbe. Indeed, it has taken my wife and I several days to have the composure to start writing a tribute in his memory. The death of Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe is a rude step and a reminder that life will one day come to an end. He was a giant. Colossal, the Nigerian, an erudite scholar, and an outstanding professional and scholastic role model, who published many authoritative works and recorded and received numerous awards.
It appears we lost Emeritus Professor Akinkube's comment. I mean, I guess the network is bad. Right away, I will invite the immediate past president of ICOMAA Worldwide, Dr. Habib Olamitoye, to make a short speech. Dr. Olamitoye, sir.
Hello, I've lost your, you have lost my video. You have disabled my video. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. And then I've asked you to start your video now.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Or can you see me now?
We can hear you and we can see you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, I want to sustain the existing protocol. My own speech is going to be very short. It's a very sad that we are missing our first ever president, somebody who took the mantle from no one, who started ICOMAA as a president. When I became the president, I must really appreciate all the past presidents and then the family, Mama, and vice president, the provost, and all the past provosts that are on stage, the current president and the ESCO members. I appreciate the wonderful work you've done to be able to put this one together. Baba, my father, Baba Akonde Emeritus, took me to Professor Akinkugbe on assumption of office as a president, and then he actually told me about the amount of commitment, amount of expectation, amount of what is expected of me, and then the kind of upgrade that we will have to bring to bear to be able to modernize ICOMAA in a way that will be relevant to the college and to the university. I can still remember, just like yesterday, all the advice, the counsel that he gave me. And I must say that as a role model to the rest of us who have also become president after him, he actually put together what I would describe as a blueprint in terms of what we expect to do in the circumstance of the financial situation of the College of Medicine, of the University College Hospital, and then of UI. My own speech, of course, Professor Akinkugbe has gone. God is going to bless Mama. God is going to bless the children and bless our alma mater. Is that the example he has set, the life he has lived must be translated into a kind of constant reminder of the kind of leadership we must lead. And then we must begin to remember that maybe in many years to come, one day, it will be said of us, the kind of contribution we will be making now will be said of us, and then this will explain why a lot is being expected on our own side, so that we can be able to maybe come very near the kind of achievement he has made, and the kind of contribution and love and commitment he has bestowed on the College of Medicine, on the University College Hospital, on the University of Ibadan, and on Nigeria as a country. And we just pray that God will continue to bless the family he has left behind. God will continue to protect Mama, that there will be no fear. God is going to be the ready husband of Mama, and then console her and console the entire family. And once again, I want to thank everyone for the privilege of being able to talk and share my views and console the family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Immediate past president, ICOMAA Worldwide. We appreciate your comment. I must acknowledge everyone that has sent comments on the chat. Professor and Professor Mrs. Oshinusi, Professor Otolorin, Dr. Zainab, Dr. Bayo Fatumbi, several other people. We appreciate your comments. We say thank you so much for your comments. Right away, I would like to invite past provosts of the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, who are here present. And I think the first person I will invite is Professor M.T. Shokumbi. Professor Shokumbi, sir.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much for asking me to be part of this event. Mama, Professor Mrs. Akinkugbe, the Lord remains your strength. We commiserate with you, and through you, the extended Akinkugbe family. The Vice Chancellor, other dignitaries present, in particular, Professor Emeritus Professor Nini Briggs, who I know is in this forum out of a great love for Papa, and I'll just leave it at that. Let me make a very quick declaration. Papa Akinkugbe admitted my class into the medical school in 1974. And so it was a bit special to me that I was aspiring to occupy a position that he occupied when I was being considered for admission into the medical school. And 3 of us in that class went on to become provost of the medical school. The 2 others are Isaac Folorunsho Adewale, who eventually became the Federal Minister of Health, and is, I think, at this event, and Olusegun Akinka, who went on to help found another medical school in the country. And so I would like to express the gratitude of my entire classmates to Papa's family for giving us such a wonderful human being who has made vast opportunities available to a lot of people, including me. So as we gather today to pay tribute to an academic and professional giant, a teacher, a mentor, benefactor, a fighter, a supporter, a man who many of us eventually resolved to call Baba. All the accolades that have been showered so far, and I'm sure many more will be showered later on in the course of his obsequies, point to the fact that there are few things in the field of tertiary education and tertiary health in this country that have not seen the fingerprints of Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe. But what is striking is that despite all these achievements, Papa a helping hand to lift people up when many others would have given up. And it really didn't matter whether you were head of state or an ordinary man on the street. And for me, I always wondered how it was possible for him to have such a warm personality and such an elegance of carriage, and yet be so tough internally. Papa had steely resolve, and he had intense internal spirit that I believe was one of his potent driving forces. I found Professor Akinkugbe to be a man with an immaculate mind and a memory that was so vast, you just wondered how he did it. And I think these two attributes reflect in the tidiness of his workspace, the tidiness of his home, the tidiness of his environment. His document keeping and retrieval, his record keeping was simply unmatched. The way he organized meetings, and he had this passion for details. And all of this enabled him to hold together a vast network of family, friends, colleagues, and mentees. Of course, he was a great storyteller, and it was always fun to be in his company and drink from his cup of wisdom. I'd like to tell you tonight that ICOMAA was conceived in his study at the Little Summit. I was about 2 or 3 months into my provostship, and he sent for me as usual. And when I arrived, and he said, well, she robo leyin egbanje, and I would have prepared some robo for you. And if you like, you may mix it up with some pieces of meat. And then he looked at me and said, you don't have to be worried, all my dogs are still alive. Such was his sense of humor that, you know, you were kept at ease so easily and so quickly. So I think this tribute is a fitting one by ICOMAA for him. The evening I'm referring to, he said to me, what are your main ideas for administering the college? So, and I said, well, you know, there's a lot of things you write in the manifesto, and those are things that you struggle with on a day-to-day basis for the life of the administration. But that my two preoccupations were how to ensure that the college became sustainable years after my tenure was over. And he said, well, what ideas do you have in mind? I said, well, the first is to put together a very solid alumni association. And the second was to establish an endowment fund. I thought these were, you know, pretty small ideas, but his face lit up with the endowment fund idea. And he said, I'm going to help you with that. And the idea appealed so much to him that he immediately accepted to chair the committee that was put together to plan the establishment of ICOMAA. And he did everything to make sure that ICOMAA debuted on the 4th of November, 1999, a Thursday. His idea was that the homecoming should be done on a fixed day of the week in a fixed month of every year, so that it becomes part of the calendar for all alumni and that people can plan ahead. I think it is safe to say that ICOMAA will remain one of the indelible legacies of Professor Akinkugbe to the College of Medicine of the University of Ibadan. Through the ICOMAA platform, our alumni are giving back to the college and helping to maintain standards through support of infrastructure and programs, keeping us a force to reckon with in medical education in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm reliably informed that in the last 4 years, ICOMAA members have given back to the college and have executed nearly $1 million worth of projects in the College of Medicine. Although Professor Akinkugbe has left us, his memory will remain with us forever. We're grateful to Professor Mrs. Folashade Akinkugbe for her love and support during nearly 6 decades of marriage. We commiserate with her, with Olumide, with Kayode, and with the larger Akinkugbe family during this trying period. And we join them in gratitude to the Almighty for his life, a life well spent and well lived. And may the Lord grant him eternal rest in his heavenly kingdom. Amen. Thank you.
Right away, permit me to invite my teacher, my mentor, Professor I.F. Adewale, to make his speech. Professor Adewale, sir.
Thank you. The ICOMAA President, Mr. Vice Chancellor, eminent personalities participating at this special event, our Mama, Professor Mrs. Folashade Akinkugbe, and the family. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is a great privilege for me to participate at this event and present a tribute in honor of Emeritus Professor Oladipo Olujimi Akinkugbe, a multi-lettered giant, variously described as teacher of teachers, mentor of mentors, professor of professors. Our real challenge is finding the right tense, as it is difficult to speak about him in the past. When he celebrated his 80th birthday, I used the narrative of the elephant and the 6 blind men to describe him. Each blind man described what he felt and yet was correct in his description. None of us could accurately describe this colossus. We can only describe him based on our interactions with him. He is a sum total of our global assessment. I knew him from a distance in the Faculty of Medicine and subsequently College of Medicine during my training years, but his works and seminar presentations, as well as publications, stood him out. He was special in appearance, special in gait, speech, and demeanor. Professor Akinkugbe was everything professorial. I had cause to fall back on his ocean of knowledge during my fellowship and clinical attachment at the Cancer Research Campaign Laboratory and the Royal Postgraduate Medical School Hammersmith, London in 1985-86. We were faced with a British citizen of Ghanaian descent with abnormal hemoglobin. She was pregnant and presented with blood in urine. She had undergone a series of tests, and I remembered one of his publications in this area and alerted my consultant about it. He only noted in the case notes that the fellow from Nigeria said this could be due to abnormal hemoglobin. But his respect for me grew when I presented a copy of that publication to him the following day. I became closer when I served as Dean, Faculty of Medicine, and subsequently as Provost College of Medicine. He was fond of my senior brother, who could fix a dialysis machine in his sleep. These, I believe, further cemented our relationship. I enjoyed regular visits to his residence, christened Little Summit, at Yagonku GRA, where he used to treat us to multi-course dinner of knowledge. Professor Akinkugbe was vast in medicine, in culture, music, and of course, politics. He was very supportive in my quest to become the 11th Vice Chancellor by giving me a reference. As a Vice Chancellor, he was equally supportive, and he led us to see General T.Y. Danjuma in Lagos. That effort culminated a few months ago in the support given by the philanthropist Kumwo Hero to University of Ibadan to establish a fellowship in renal medicine. Ever willing to act in support of a request, he would readily pick his phone to sort things out, and he was well and abundantly connected. He was a Mr. Fix-It. He was very generous and fond of hosting well-organized parties and receptions in honor of worthy and essentially academic causes. A very meticulous person, he will personally reach out to his invitees to confirm their attendance at events hosted by him, organized in his honor. His transition truly marks the end of an era in the medical arena, but I boldly assert that his works will live forever. We commiserate with Professor Folashade Akinkugbe and the family.
I say goodbye to the academic giant. Good night.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments, sir. The next person I'd like to invite is Professor Akinkugbe. Professor Omegbodo, sir.
Thank you very much. Please permit me to extend my courtesies to Mama, Professor Folashade Akinkugbe and the entire Akinkugbe family, as well as my teachers, colleagues, and other people who are attending this event, celebrating the life of Baba, Professor Ladipo Akinkugbe. I first set eyes on Baba Akinkugbe shortly after I had been appointed professor at Ibadan. He was the chairman at the wedding reception of two of his former students. It was a momentous occasion for that era, two young doctors getting married. And the preacher at the event was another eminent professor from Ibadan. What struck me most about Professor Akinkugbe was his height and his aristocratic carriage. As I became older, I understood why those two students of ease thought so highly of him that he was given such a position of honor at such an important milestone of their lives. I did not get to see him again until 6 years later, when I was being interviewed for admission into the medical school at Ibadan. At that time, each university had its own admission procedure, and each conducted its own concessional entrance examination for those without what was then called the higher school certificate or advanced level subject qualifications. Professor Akinkugbe was in the last year of his tenure as dean of the defunct Faculty of Medicine, and we were the last set of medical students admitted by him. He maintained the tradition of having every student attend an interview before being offered admission into the medical school until he left. Shortly after we were admitted, he left Ibadan to go and lead first the University of Ilorin, later on the Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria. So as a student and early in my practice career, he was just a role model I admired from afar, although I did get the benefit of his professional tutelage for a brief period during our final year in medical school. I got to interact with him a bit more on two platforms, and I'll just talk briefly about them. The first is on the platform of the Journal of the University of Ibadan Medical Students Association, DOCITA, the editorial board of which I've been the chairman for the past 17 years. The other was when I had the privilege to lead the College of Medicine as the 8th provost, the successor institution to the old Faculty of Medicine that he led from 1970 to 1974. Professor Akinkugbe loved students, and he supported several generations of students of the various health professions, not only in Ibadan, but in several other institutions. It was amazing how he could get students, many of whose parents had not even been born when he had already started practicing medicine, to be at ease with him and feel comfortable having a conversation with him. Over the years, he gave his unwavering support for the activities of DOCITA, mobilizing resources for the various events held by the editorial board. The gratitude of the students can be seen in the eponymous Akinkugbe quiz competition that is now held biennially among medical schools throughout Nigeria. And Professor Akinkugbe has mobilized a lot of resources for the sustenance of that competition. He always had time for the students in DOCITA and other students. During my term as provost, Professor Akinkugbe was a pillar of support to us in the college administration. He had completed his term as the foundation president of the Ibadan College of Medicine Alumni Association before I assumed office. But he continued to support the association, offering numerous suggestions and mobilizing support for building a stronger institution. As a witness to the evolution of the institution, the university, the college, and the various component parts, he was vast in its history. And his wealth of experience gave him such an insight that his advice on practically any issue that had to do with the administration of the college or the university was always right on target. Many times he would reach out just to find out how we were doing. Professor Akinkugbe believed very much in fairness to everyone, and he strove to ensure that all got due recognition for their contribution. I had seen him engineer the process of getting some people who had made major contributions to the university or to society in general to obtain recognition by being awarded honorary degrees. The most heartwarming, and I believe the Vice Chancellor had alluded to this earlier, and what was probably one of his last battles was to get Professor Adeoye Lambo given his due recognition in the university by having the Senate chamber named after him. I have titled my tribute "A Legend in His Time." I will end it on a bit of a personal note. My wife had a special relationship with Professor Akinkugbe, and Professor Akinkugbe had been a mentor and what I would say, somebody who opened doors for her on several occasions in the past. Just a couple of days before his final medical trip, Baba invited us to Little Summit, and we went there, and we had a wonderful time with him. My family did produce a small music album, which we had presented to him earlier. And Baba was always referring to how he loved to listen to one of the tracks called Alafia in that album. And whilst we were with him, he played Alafia, and then my wife was able to sing along and play the guitar with him, and we left really encouraged, and we were looking forward to his return. And when he came back, he did give me a call, and my wife also spoke to him, and he joked because at that time they were in the process of selecting a new provost for the college. And he did make a joke that he was looking forward to seeing the first female provost of our College of Medicine. Well, Baba, adieu. We thank you very much. You indeed were a legend in your time. You have gone to take your rest. You have, however, left an indelible legacy, and I pray that legacy will continue to flourish. We send the comfort of the Holy Spirit to Mama and the rest of the family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We sincerely appreciate the tribute. Permit me to invite the next former provost, Professor O.O. Akinyinka, to make his speech. Professor Akinyinka, sir. Professor Akinyinka, okay. Please unmute yourself, sir. Professor Akinyinka, please unmute yourself, sir.
Hello.
Okay, you can hear
Hello. I hope you can hear me. Hello.
We can hear you, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, all courtesies duly extended. We're here to celebrate the demise of an intellectual giant. Someone who has been here, he's strode the world of medicine and administration as a giant among giants. I would recall earlier, knowing Professor Akinkugbe as a young growing up medical student was quite awe-inspiring. He was somebody who you would get the impression that would you ever reach this phase? You'll be flabbergasted by this tall man with a parted hair, thin-rimmed pair of glasses, who spoke Oxonian English. However, he disappeared to be vice chancellors everywhere and member and chairman of the board of the UCH. I do recall my interactions with him on a personal note and an unofficial note. Sometime in 2010, when I became the 9th provost, we visited him along with the management of the college, this little summit. He hosted us to a lunch, and then I asked him a question that we have essentially given out all the plots of land without much being given to the college that we needed to build. It is important to recognize a repository of knowledge, a repository of a history of the college when it was there. So I asked for where can we build it. He now referred me to go to Clinical Sciences building, now renamed Akinkugbe building. Now I should go and stand on the balcony of the 2nd, 3rd, and the 4th floor and look at the Odeku library, which I did. He told me that you will find on top of the Odeku library 49 columns. I don't know why anyone will remember that, but like I said, it's a repository of knowledge and history. So I looked and I went back to him and said, yes, I could see columns, though I didn't count. He said, the columns represented the idea that the library, Odeku Library, was supposed to be at the same level with the Clinical Sciences building. There, the idea was born to put up 2 floors on the Odeku Library. And we're very grateful for this knowledge, and that is the basis for the vertical extension over the medical library. And then we continued our interactions. From time to time, he would invite you. From time to time, I would invite myself to visit him at this place of residence. Then on a very personal note, I recall talking to Biodun Ilesomi about the need for something. And Professor Ilesomi went to him and related my request to him. I was in the living room around 8 o'clock. I got this call from Baba, and he said to me, you wanted something. He said it in Yoruba, but I will just simply state it in English. And he said, why would you go to Biodun Ilesomi when you could easily talk to me? And then he said, when I said I felt that I needed to ask Biodun to talk to you, he said, no, consider it done. And it was done while seated in the corner of my house. Subsequently, this January, he called me up while I was on holidays because he never forgets people. He will remember the minute details of each and every one. So he called me sometime in January. I was out of the country, and he said, I want you to do this. And I couldn't afford to say I couldn't. So when I came back, I went back to him and I explained my position, and he said, that is the end of it. So this was somebody who remembers everything. He was somebody whose life can be described in the words of Henry Longfellow, the English poet, who said, the lives of great men all remind us, because he was a great man, that we can make our lives sublime. Certainly, we looked at him as someone who had reached the peak, but he never stopped climbing. That in departing, we leave our footprints in the sands of time. You have left your footprints in the sands of time. You have left your footprints in the history of a college and the university. And then to many of your followers, we are very gratified for knowing you. To live in the hearts of those we love is not to die. You remain very much alive in our hearts. So we say goodbye on behalf of myself and the members of the management, which I headed as the 9th provost. Thank you, and God bless you in your sleep. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comment. We don't know if Professor Salako is online now. Professor Salako said they will join us. I think I would like to invite the former Chief Medical Director of University College Hospital Ibadan, Professor Abiodun Ilesami, to make his comment. Professor Ilesami, sir.
Hello?
Hello, sir.
Hello, are you hearing me?
We can hear
Good
you,
evening.
We can hear you, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. I've listened carefully. I really don't know how to start. But what I can say is that Baba lived for all of us, for so many Nigerians and for people all over the world. His life was just simply a donation to humanity. He did everything for everybody without asking for anything in return. Baba is the person that will pick you up just as a raw product. Nobody is even looking at you. You can't offer anything. It will work on you, and you just be a work in progress. Soon, you become a product, enviable product that is marketable all over the world. And he will do all this with all the natural resources available to him without asking for anything in return. So I think Baba is simply irreplaceable. And all I can say at this point, not to be too emotional, is that Baba should continue to rest in perfect peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We heard you very loud and clear. Thank you, sir. I want to know if Professor Alunga is online. Professor Temitope Alunga, the immediate past Chief Medical Director of University College Hospital Ibadan. I can't find him online. Permit me to invite right away the current head of Department of Medicine, College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, Professor Adebola Ogunbi. Eshodima.
Good evening, the president of ICOMAA. Thank you for inviting me to take part in this night of tributes. I join others in paying tribute to Emeritus Professor Oladipo Olujimi Akinkugbe. We've been told that he joined the University of Ibadan in 1965, and he rose to become professor at the age of 35 years. He was the third head of medicine, and that was in 1972. Professor Akinkugbe was well known for his extensive work in hypertension in Blacks, especially in the tropics. He established the first hypertension and renal unit in Nigeria at the University College Hospital, Ibadan. He characterized hypertension in adults and also established its occurrence in children. Hypertension, which led to routine blood checks, even without symptoms. The first dialysis treatment, which was peritoneal dialysis in Nigeria, was carried out by Prof in 1967 on a patient that had acute renal failure. Subsequently, this treatment modality was thereafter widely available in other parts of the country. Professor Akinkugbe utilized his influence and connections with the Center. Assistance from the British Council, he established the Hemodialysis Center in 1990 in the University College Hospital in Ibadan. Ibadan. We've been told about it in ensuring that the mandatory training in medicine. The common thing when we're examining students, you are your father, and the student wondering why to him. We heard a lot of that during the rounds. Professor Akinkugbe was also involved in training nephrologists all over Nigeria. And currently, you would actually find out that most of the nephrologists in Nigeria were actually trained by Professor Akinkugbe, or Professor Akinkugbe trained the trainer who had trained the current nephrologist.
I do not know. I suspect we have lost the HOD of medicine. I guess maybe I will invite her again if she still has additional comments to make. Because of our time, allow me to invite the ICOMAA chapter president. ICOMAA has a chapter globally, and I will start by inviting the ICOMAA president for North America, Dr. Titilola Brito. Dr. Brito, can you please make your comment, ma'am?
Thank you. Thank you so much for asking me to be part of this program. I would like to recognize all the dignitaries. First of all, Mama, Professor Folashade Akinkugbe, and Kayode and Olumide Akinkugbe, as well as the extended Akinkugbe family. Please accept my sincere condolences on behalf of the 1,400 College of Medicine alumni who are here in North America. Thank you also to the provost and the previous provosts, the vice chancellor, the CMD, and the previous CMDs. I'm speaking on behalf of 1,400 alumni here at the College of Medicine. It's difficult to put into words what Professor Akinkugbe meant to all of us. The College of Medicine, the University of Ibadan, the world medical and scientific community, and the nation of Nigeria have lost an icon. We have a deep sense of loss, yet we also celebrate his life, and we give gratitude for the life he spent in unyielding service to humanity. We loved, respected, and admired him, but God loved him best and called him home to rest, a worthy servant whose time on earth was done. Emeritus Professor Oladipo Olujimi Akinkugbe was a giant. He blazed a trail so that so many of us could follow in his footsteps. Much has been written about his academic prowess and the achievements that took him from Ondo Boys High School to GCI, to the University of Ibadan, to the Royal London Hospital, and then on to the University of Liverpool. After his stint at Adeoyo, he went back to Oxford to get a PhD, and then continued to trailblaze by becoming the first African professor of medicine at the age of 35, serving as dean and head of department, before moving on to become vice chancellor of 2 universities in Nigeria, pro-chancellor of 1, chairman of planning committees at 2 more. He had visiting professorships at top institutions around the world, including Harvard, Yale, Johns Hopkins, and the University of Washington. He authored dozens of books, hundreds of medical articles, and served the World Health Organization as a scientific expert in multiple capacities. To those of us who were fortunate enough to be taught by him, he was an outstanding teacher. He was kind and generous with his knowledge and inspired all of us through his dedication to excellence. My recollections of him, most of my clinical school years, he was either working at the WHO or serving as vice chancellor elsewhere. However, he did come back in my final year, and he gave a lecture on hypertension, which he covered from A to Z, north to south, east to west, and left us with such a great understanding of that subject that we were all inspired and hoped to be like him one day. Because of that, and because of my opportunity to work in the renal unit as a house officer, I subsequently trained in nephrology. And I believe there are a very large number of hypertension and nephrology specialists from the University of Ibadan as a result of their interactions with him. But one of his most admired traits, I think, was his sense of humility, as well as his integrity. He also had an attitude of mutual respect and mentorship for younger colleagues. And the confidence that imbued in so many of us has propelled us forward with a sense of certainty that nothing was impossible. He served as a mentor to many, and he accomplished a body of work and service to Nigeria and other African nations in his lifetime that has earned his place in history. His commitment to excellence in medicine was equaled only by his commitment to Nigeria. And he served as an advisor and a technical consultant to multiple heads of state in efforts to improve delivery of healthcare across the country. In his later years, he established the Hypertension Treatment Center, and we are so fortunate to have had him serve as the pioneer president of the Ibadan College of Medicine Alumni Association Worldwide. On our website, ICOMAA.org, we have put a tribute that was written by one of his former house officers, Dr. Abraham Ario, and I will read a few words from him. Professor Oladipo Akinkugbe was a distinguished clinician and cardiovascular scholar of a bygone era. Our beloved and respected teacher, a distinguished scholar, and a fine human being has passed on to the beyond. Sleep in the Lord, our dear professor. In our hearts, you remain the teacher of teachers, professor of professors, and a clinician of clinicians. On behalf of the Executive Committee and the members of ICOMAA North America, I would like to extend our sincere and heartfelt condolences to Professor Akinkugbe's family, friends, and colleagues, and to the Ibadan College of Medicine, the University of Ibadan, and all ICOMAA members worldwide. ICOMAA North America has a distinguished alumni lectureship each year at our annual general meeting. And in honor and in memory of our first worldwide president, Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe, it will henceforth be known as the Professor Akinkugbe Memorial Distinguished Alumni Lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. That was great. Thank you, Ma. We will invite the ICOMAA Worldwide United Kingdom chapter. The president is Professor Adesegun Abudu, but is represented here by Dr. Tonya Jala. So can we have your comments, ICOMAA UK chapter? Dr. Tonya Jala, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. All protocols duly observed. Warm greetings to everyone, especially to my teachers, all the professors and other distinguished guests, especially to Professor Mrs. Folashade Akinkugbe, Auntie Shade, who is my godmother. I'm giving this tribute on behalf of ICOMAA UK and also on behalf of my family, especially my husband and I. Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe was an exemplary role model. He was a mentor, a teacher, and a father figure to very many of us. I have to take this to a personal level because I have known him all my life, and I was heartbroken when I was informed of his passing away. He's been a very close figure to my family, especially to my parents for decades, and to those of us in ICOMAA UK, he has always been a father figure, a mentor. and just a very welcoming, supportive teacher. As I mentioned before, his beautiful wife, Professor Mrs. Akinkugbe Antishade, is my official godmother. Over the early years, somehow I became very close to Uncle, as I fondly call Prof. I know that they had many godchildren between them. I always fancied myself as their favorite. When I was ill and in hospital in 2008, he spent a whole day at my bedside in Barnet General. That was how humble and supportive and caring he was. I was very touched by that visit. I loved all our intellectual talks and our simple banter. He was always indulgent and very supportive. I don't know where to start with how accomplished Uncle was as a physician, an academic, and scholar. That has been spoken about throughout this whole evening. We all know how distinguished he was amongst Nigerians. He was one of the most eminent and distinguished Nigerians from all walks of life. He was a true asset to our nation, Nigeria, and to the medical profession. A true gentleman in every sense of the word. I was proud to call him my godfather. I wish I could have been there to bid him farewell, but it was not to be. And with the lockdown, well, God knows best. It is heart-wrenching to lose someone so special. He was always there for my parents also, ever present, loving and supportive. To my father, my dad, Professor Akonde, he was a precious big brother. He leaves behind his wife, his children, and grandchildren, and so many of us who were his beloved and loving children. He had a long and blessed life, and for that we give thanks to God. And so on behalf of ICOMAA UK and also on behalf of my family, I say that you'll be sorely missed, sir, Uncle, till we meet again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ajala. We appreciate your comment. Permit me to invite straight away Dr. Oluyomi Sobowale, the president of ICOMAA Canada. Can I also appeal to everyone to please switch off their microphone except they're making comments and also their video? Thank you very much. Dr. Sobowale.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. Please go ahead.
My video has been disabled by you down there anyway. I can't put it on here. Okay, thank you. All protocols are observed, and on behalf of members of ICOMAA Canada, we're still a new chapter here. We're trying to reorganize ourselves. We'd like to express condolence to the family of Professor Ladipo Akinkugbe, friends and colleagues on his passing to eternal glory. As we mourn his loss, we celebrate his legacy and the lifelong impact that he had on each and every student that he taught at the University College Hospital, Ibadan, and elsewhere. My path crossed with Professor Akinkugbe at one reunion meeting we had as an old boy of Government College Ibadan years ago, when I was a student there. He later taught me as a medical student at the University College Hospital in Ibadan. Professor Ladipo Akinkugbe was a wonderful teacher and a mentor. He was dedicated, soft, and well-spoken. He created a non-intimidating environment that fostered excellent learning for his eager students. As we continue our professional lives in and outside Nigeria, we have all come to appreciate his dedication and excellence in the making of future generations of physicians. He will be terribly missed by the medical world. Our solace is that he lived a fulfilled life that we are all proud of. Sleep well, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sobowale. I would like to know if Dr. Agbeni is online, the ICOMAA President, South Africa. I can't find you, Dr. Agbeni. Okay, permit me to invite Dr. Funsho Adedeji, who is representing the president of IMSG, Dr. Banjade Oju. Dr. Adedeji, can you please make your comment? Dr. Funsho Adedeji.
Thank you very much for inviting me and to pay tribute to Professor Akinkugbe on behalf of IMSG United Kingdom. Our condolences to Professor Mrs. Folashade Akinkugbe and her larger family on the loss of Professor Akinkugbe. I was Professor Akinkugbe's student so many years ago, almost over 36 years ago, and I remember him as a student of being a student's teacher. He was a gentle guy who provided us with safe environment to learn. He provided a safe environment that made it easy for us to understand what he was talking, but for us to be confident to ask questions, to learn, and not be intimidated by his presence. His presence as a professor was not what was important. What was important to Professor Akinkugbe was the knowledge he was going to impart upon us, and that had a lasting impression on all of us till now, so many years down the line. What I've done is ask a few members of my group to send words of Akinkugbe, Professor Akinkugbe, as they remembered him, and I'll read some of this out to you from members of the group. I have from Dr. Akinkugbe, who is a consultant psychiatrist, and he writes, I remember as his houseman in 1987, being taken by him to a patient home in New Bodija to see hemodialysis in action for the very first time, possibly only time in my life. It would make quite an impression, which I never forget. And it did reprove me for not being, meeting his exacting standard to the whiteness of my coat. From Femi Adebajo, he taught a class, Clinical Clerkship, Introduction to Clinical Core lectures. His method of collating the patient history, examination findings, and auxiliary investigations into model for diagnostic formulation made an enduring impression on my practice afterwards and my forays into teaching. Professor had the understated dignity that inspired by both his eminence and even comportment at all times. You wanted to be like him. Ayo Oshowo, who's a consultant colorectal surgeon, I was lucky to have been his house officer at UCH. He would take us back to his office after each lengthy but inspiring word round for debriefing. The hot akara was always ready, but so were many ECGs to be reported. He taught me systematic reporting of ECG and life in medicine. He would always say diligence and perseverance were the keys to a successful career. A great man, a great teacher, and a great mentor. Dr. Tony Adenaike, I did my medical rotation under him as a medical student. Fantastic gentleman. Years later, mentioning his name got me my first registrar job at St. George's Hospital in Tooting, United Kingdom. The interview was going very badly until one of the interviewers asked if I knew Professor Akinkugbe during my training in UCH. I went on to talk about the same things that he taught us in nephrology, and the guy decided to give me a shot because if Akinkugbe taught me, then I must be good enough. May his gentle soul rest in peace. From Dr. Annette Akishete, National Director and CEO of the Sickle Cell Foundation in Nigeria. I got very close to Professor Akinkugbe after medical school and worked on him at the National Expert Committee in Non-Communicable Diseases in the Federal Ministry of Health. Together, we traveled the length and breadth of Nigeria to all nooks and crannies of the country, conducting the largest community-based survey. Together, we crafted and drafted policy documents. He just continued to teach, as was his natural inclination. So he was my teacher, my mentor, my cheerleader, my father rolled into one. All the years we worked together, and he never stopped playing these roles until the very end. His passing hit me hard, God rest his soul. I'll conclude with the words of Dr. Helen Shashebon, who's written, I admired him from afar. He was very dignified and composed, not a loud person, a very academic and cerebral individual. May Professor Akinkugbe's soul rest in peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adedeji, for that concise tribute. We appreciate you. We have just few more minutes left this program, and right away, I would like to invite a few other people to make very short comments. First on the list is Professor Funsho Famuyiwa. Professor Famuyiwa, can you please make a very short comment?
First of all, I would like to recognize Auntie Professor Folashade Akinkugbe. May the Lord strengthen you, ma'am. It is a great honor to write a tribute about an uncommonly endowed Nigerian in the person of late Professor Oladipo Akinkugbe, an astute clinician with unparalleled bedside acumen and manners, a gifted teacher with the eloquence of a sage, a perceptive researcher with intuition for what is clinically relevant, an able administrator with an insight for productive engagement, a scholar, a humanist, and a consummate gentleman. Much has and will be written and said about our dear departed teacher, model, mentor, and role model. But what I will briefly focus on are aspects about him that may be quickly glossed over. These are his unique gifts of writing and teaching, writing and teaching. The former I tried hard to emulate without success, and the latter I did not venture to borrow at all because it is not something one can just copy and paste. For him, it was not a learned behavior, but something that came naturally to him on the lecture podium. Apart from the words he spoke, which could be plumbed for knowledge and wisdom, he had a calm but engaging style of delivery. He would stride with his unique gait across the podium, sometimes with a hand in his trouser pocket, make occasional small gestures with his hand, and with dramatic pauses between sentences in anticipation of what was coming next. His presentations were often spiced with gentle humor, and one could sense such moments because a smile would play around the corners of his mouth before he delivered the punchline. His gait, G-A-I-T, both on the lecture podium as well as on the corridors and wards of research, hand him a sobriquet among my generation of medical students in the late 1960s. I will state it now because it was coined in admiration of him and not in derision. We called him, but not to his hearing or any of our other teachers, congenital guy. His tall build with dignified strides in his impeccable white coat spurred that moniker. And it was so unique a gait, we concluded it was not acquired, but from birth. The contemporary word for that today would be swag. Late Professor Akinkugbe wrote beautifully and made medical science discourse enjoyable to read. As a student, I avidly read many of the special lectures he delivered, and they were numerous. With his breadth of knowledge of not just medicine, but also philosophy, he slipped into his writings ever so subtly. Quotations from Confucius to Aristotle, from Shakespeare to Tennyson, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Mandela, and many more. He had a knack for crafting titles for his writings and presentations that were unique, engaging, captivating, and yet appropriate. One notable and memorable example was a special lecture he delivered in 1982, the 11th Alexander Brown Memorial Lecture titled Ibadan in Nigerian Medicine, Then, Now, and Quo Vadis. This particular title has spawned many imitators of variations thereof over the years, mine included. Over the years, especially in the last quarter century, I established a personal relationship with him, and we had exchanges and interactions over a variety of issues, propositions, and projects. He was always an engaging conversationalist, and I relished the few one-on-one occasions I had with him. He gave me an autographed copy of his autobiography, Footsteps and Footprints, which was published in 2010, and about a year ago, he gave me a 2-volume compilation of his lecture titled in his inimitable style, Strands from the Fabric of the Mind, volumes 1 and 2. Try and top that for a title. They are part of my prized collections. The last time I saw him was just before Christmas last year, when my wife and I paid him a Yuletide visit. He showed us the ornate conference room within his office complex, and then took us to the balcony overlooking the swimming pool. Then, despite our protestations, he walked us to our car, joking in reference to the Christmas hamper that we brought as gift. Funsho, I see that you have emptied ShopRite. His chuckle is still echoing in my ears. That was my last memory of him. Rest peaceful in the Lord, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments, sir. We appreciate it. Right now, please permit me to invite Emeritus Professor Nimi Briggs to make a short comment. We appreciate you, sir. Professor Nimi Briggs has been online with us right from the start of this program. Kindly make your comment, sir.
Well, my dear friends and colleagues, as you know, I did not train at the University of Ibadan. So I want to start by thanking you all for inviting me to be present here. The fact that I didn't train at the University of Ibadan was what brought Professor Akinkugbe and I together. And this was in 1975 at the Ahmadu Bello University. I had finished my studies in the United Kingdom and then returned to Nigeria and picked up an appointment with Professor Kelsey Harrison at the Ahmadu Bello University Obstetrics and Gynecology Department. Professor Akinkugbe was the Vice Chancellor of the university, but then he was coming from Samaru, where the university was, down to where the teaching hospital was, to do ward rounds in the Department of Internal Medicine. And then one day he called me and tried to find out that he couldn't really place me which class I belonged to at the University of Ibadan, what year he taught me. So I then told him, no, sir, I did not attend the University of Ibadan. And he said, you didn't attend University of Ibadan? I said, no, sir, I didn't. Well, that's how our relationship started. And since then, it has fostered on and on and on and on and on and on. And that was his hallmark. He never put people into compartments. He took on everybody on his or her own merits. And then all the descriptions you've given, they will apply to my relationship with him. His good wife will remember that it was only a few weeks ago I was in their house and she prepared a good meal for us and we ate. Ma, I think you have cause to thank God that this is the life of your husband. It is sad he has to leave us and that he has left us. But please take solace in the fact that this was a great, great man to many, many persons. He has left his personality everywhere and a footprint on the sands of time, as he wrote in this book, which we all have. The onus is now on all of us to try and see if we can produce anybody who can get to that level in the next couple of years. So I thank you all for inviting me to be present, and I wish his family God's speed, God's strength, so that they can bear this irreparable loss. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments. Thank you so much. I understand the 10th Provost of the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, Professor Babatunde L. Salako, is now with us. Can we take your comments, Professor Salako?
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah, good
we can hear you,
evening,
sir.
ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for my inability to join ULA. I had one little thing that I needed to contend with. So I'm quite very sorry. I met Professor Akinkugbe while I was trying to get residency training at the University College Hospital Ibadan. And I went to see him to ask him to write me a reference. And he asked me a question. And the question was, did you train under me at any time? And my answer was no. And he then said, it will be too mechanical for me to write you a reference. I rather told him that, well, I had passed through the renal unit when Professor Kadiri was there. He said, okay, why don't you meet Solomon to write you the reference? I got to Professor Kadri and got the reference. And of course, I got into medicine. Providence brought us together again while I was rotating through renal unit. Then it was Dr. Folabi Ogunlesi who introduced me to Prof, because Ogunlesi was about going to the UK for a PhD in Oxford. And Prof needed somebody to be doing what Ogunlesi was doing. So I started working with Prof on a WHO cardiac study with the likes of Professor Kadri, Professor Arije, and Professor Catherine Falade. What I noticed in my very close relationship with Prof is his humility. Each time Prof called me to his office, and after our discussion, he would stand up from his chair and lead me to the door, open the door, and then he will say a few final words. Tunde, see you later. And I've been wondering that, me, I'm just a resident, a registrar, and here is world-renowned professor. Each time I go to his office, he will see me to the door. I have not seen that kind of humility before. So I took that away from him, and I still practice that till today. Prof has touched many lives. He has indeed written references, even though I didn't get one at that time. I got several later. Sometimes I wonder whether it was me he was writing about in those references. He's elevated his students with many of these references. He has connected them to his colleagues, his networks, and many of them today cannot write their history without mentioning Professor Akinkugbe. Professor Akinkugbe also served the country. When you talk about education, you talk about medicine, he made his mark. He was well known in those areas. When you talk about research, he did that nationally and internationally. He made his mark. He was a man whom you cannot pass through him and you are not going to pick up something that you can take away from him. I believe that Prof came, he saw, and he conquered. I can only pray that those of us whom he left behind will continue to display some of these good attributes that we have taken from him. So I say adieu, Professor Oladipo Olujimi Akinkugbe. Rest in peace. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comment. Permit me to invite two of Baba's former students. Professor Rashid Balogun, I don't know if you are still online. Would you like to make a few comments while Professor Shola Botosho gets set?
I thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that I do not have prepared comments. I actually was not aware that I would be called on to speak. Professor Akinkugbe was a great influence in my professional and personal life. I met him, like many other people, as a student at UCH, at UI. And the very first time, within the first few minutes of sitting as a student in his class, I was so impressed with his knowledge, not only of medicine, but of world affairs and his manner of interacting with us as a group. I can honestly say that since that time that I met him in the 1980s, all of my work as a person and as a clinician has been to try to become someone just like him. I have the greatest level of respect for him. I think it's an irreparable loss that we in nephrology and in internal medicine and all of Nigeria have had to bear. We thank his family, Prof. Folashade Akinkugbe and his children for sharing his time with us. We all have benefited from our interaction with the Prof, and we wish him and everyone that has ever been part of his family a good time and all of the needed opportunity to bear this loss. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you very much, Prof. Professor Shalagbotosho.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to say a few words about Professor Akinkugbe. I didn't do a first degree in UI, and so I did not know him as an undergraduate student. However, my first encounter with him was sometimes in the early 2001, when my brother actually married his adorable niece, Adeokbe. And since then, I've had a wonderful admiration for Prof. And from time to time, our paths crossed, and I displayed so much humility, which I admired. However, sometimes in 2018, we got talking, and he was telling me about a project that he was doing in Ogun State, looking at natural products for non-communicable diseases. And he said it the first time, and the second time he was wondering if I was interested. So I said, well, I'm into malariology, and that wasn't my field. He said, do I mind if he had a look at my CV? And so I gave it to him. And to my surprise, he called me and said he was so impressed. And you know him saying really nice things. And I was wondering, really, could this be true from a professor of such standing? And after he saw the CV, he said, you could bring your experience from your malaria studies onto that project. I want you on board of the trustees. And before I knew it, he had put me as a member of the board of trustees for that particular project. And the next thing he asked me was, are you a member of the Nigerian Academy of Science? And I said, no, sir. He said, your CV is very strong. I really believe you should be a member of that prestigious academy. I thought it was a joke. And before I knew it, in 2019, that was last year, I got to my office.
Thank you for
and my office assistant told me, Professor Akinkugbe brought a letter. I couldn't believe. I said, are you sure Professor Akinkugbe brought this letter or he sent somebody? Anyway, I opened the package, and lo and behold, it was the application form for the fellowship of the Nigerian Academy of Science. And he had highlighted several areas with yellow highlights that I should not miss. I couldn't believe it. And I called him immediately. I said, Prof, I understand you brought this form. Why? You could have asked me to come and collect the form from you. He said, I wanted you to know how important this is. He said, can we beat the deadline? I said, I will try. And I began to work on it. Unfortunately, my mom fell ill. She was admitted. I was also heading a new department in the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology in the Faculty of Pharmacy. As the pioneer head, my hands were full. I was also under pressure because I was shuttling between UCH, my office, and having to meet with Prof ever so often on the documentation. Unfortunately, again, I lost my sister-in-law during this period. So the pressure was much, but it takes a great man like Professor Akinkugbe to keep pushing you on at times like this, that go for gold in spite of the circumstances that are surrounding you. And I kept working. And what also intrigued me the most was each time I had to meet with him, he was waiting in his office, patiently just for me to come and we'll discuss all I needed to do again and what I had done so far. He was going to actually nominate me. But what he said to me was that he found out that he had to be up to date with his deals, and he wasn't. And he wasn't ready to pay the dues. That's what he said, that, you know, I'm 80-something years old. I said, Prof, you're going nowhere. Anyway, I went ahead, submitted, and I was amazed that I was able to meet the deadline. I didn't know when the AGM was going to hold, so I submitted and forgot all about the submission, only for him to call me on the 6th of February, after I had received a message from the Vice Chancellor that I had been elected a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Science. And then he called me thereafter, and he was so elated. I went over to his house to say thank you to him, you know, but he was, you know, like, it's just one of those things. It's just one of those things. I was shocked. And he had all the documentation in front of him. He had highlighted my name where my name came up, and he said, Shola, look at where your name is. He was indeed a helper of destiny. And I'm so thankful for his life. He's a man who raises people up the ladder of success. And of course, when I heard his death, it was a great shock to me. But I know that he's lived a very impactful life. Everybody mattered to him. He loved my family to pieces. My daughter's name he called so fondly, and there were no airs about him. I pray the Lord will comfort his darling wife, Professor Shade Akinkugbe, and the entire Akinkugbe family. And I know that the good legacy he has left behind will speak volumes in the lives of all his family members and his children, in the name of Jesus. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to say a few words about Professor.
Thank you so much, Ma. I really appreciate the comment. Before I call some two medical students to make comments, permit me to invite Dr. Jire Awutedu Ni Akinkugbe to make a comment. Dr. Awutedu, please. Dr. Awutedu, please. I'm not sure if Dr. Jire Awutedu is still online. Can you please unmute yourself? She's online. Okay, I guess we'll come back to that. We have heard repeatedly that Baba loves students, medical students, especially students from University of Ibadan Medical Student Association and the Federation of African Medical Student Association. Permit me to invite Abdul Basit Feintola to make a short comment on behalf of the medical students before we take a response from the family. Feintola, Abdul Basit, please.
Thank you very much, sir, Dr. Olashola, and I really appreciate the opportunity given to me to speak on behalf of the medical students of the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan. I really want to start by saying that we, on behalf of all medical students in the college, we send our deepest condolences to the family. Baba was not just a great leader to us, he was our teacher, he was a father to us, he was our mentor, he was always caring for us. He was one of those that you would readily call and he would pick up even at wee hours of the evening, which is something that we don't usually encourage ourselves to do to people of his standing. Outside of the classroom, of course, he didn't exactly teach us in the classroom, but at our seminars, at our events, his speeches and comments are always very golden. FANSA especially, which is the Federation of African Medical Students Association, we will always be very grateful to him, as he has been, as he was very influential to us and to the Federation while we're organizing our 50th anniversary and General Assembly and Scientific Conference here in Ibadan in 2018, which was which had a very huge and positive impact on the continent, as we're able to draw a lot of sponsors and very renowned organizations from around the world. We pray that the Lord Almighty guide and bless his soul as the heavens prepare to welcome a legend. We will miss him a great deal. Again, our thoughts and deepest condolences are with the Akinkugbe family. Thank you very much once again. And thank you to ICOMAA for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the medical students.
Thank you very much, Abdul Basit. I know the Doctor Editorial Board actually had a tribute, which I've tried to share. I can't find the editor-in-chief here now. So the editor-in-chief is there. Please make a brief comment on behalf of Doctor Editorial Board.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this privilege. I really appreciate it. So I will just read straightforward from the but I would like to say was a son supporter, was a father, was a mentor to us all, an epitome of immunity. There were times he called on us for meetings, and the way he approached matters, the way he spoke to us, he made us feel at home. And that's really, really one of the things that I appreciate about him. So just to summarize everything, we send our condolences to the family. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you very much, sir.
Adejumoke Abiodun for speaking on behalf of Doctor Editorial Board. Final person I would like to invite on my list, except otherwise instructed again by the ICOMAA Worldwide President, is Professor Oshinusi. My apologies for calling you this late, sir. Ama, I know you've been online with us from the beginning, but our elder says the big masquerade danced last. I hope you are still online. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma. Professor Oshinusi. Hello, ma. You're not using the device audio, so we can't hear you now. I think we'll probably have to call you back later. Okay. The president, sir. Can I go ahead and take the response from the family before taking closing remark from Baba Akondi?
Okay.
To give a response on behalf of the family is Mr. Olumide Akinkugbe.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening. On behalf of the Akinkugbe family,
can we please mute all the other devices in their place and also reduce the volume to the barest minimum?
I would like to thank the Ibadan College of Medicine alumni for organizing this event in honor of our father. This is not an easy period for me. Forgive me. I expected some more time with my father.
It's not an easy period for him.
Even at 86. I will say my father was very hardworking and quite humble. He used humor as a way to make people feel more at ease. And I never really saw him raising his voice. I know my father noticed his surroundings quite acutely. And those who felt that maybe my father did not notice something because he did not mention it were often surprised when later on he would say something to make you realize that he had seen what you had thought you got away with. I certainly experienced a lot of that. Certainly, I know that he had a deep concern for all and tried his best to help whenever he could. And indeed, I know one of the few things that annoyed him was meeting people who did not help others. My father always held out a helping hand, a hand of friendship and support to many. I thank you for your kindness and your eloquent tributes. Shortly before he passed, and I knew the end was near, I felt I had to say some words to my father, and I will sum it up by saying that I told my father I loved him dearly. And he said to me that, Olumide, I love you and all my children. I say this to tell you that my father did hold all of you as his children, not just his nuclear children, but all of you. And I'm sure he would indeed have appreciated what you have done tonight. I thank you all for everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the comment. I have been instructed to recognize Mama Catherine Falade. Even though the family had given a response, please, I crave your indulgence, everyone, to kindly let us allow her. Mama Faladema.
Thank you very much. I am very grateful for this opportunity because to me, Prof is my super mentor. He was my teacher. He was the clinician role model. Apart from being a renowned academic and a fine administrator, for me, Prof was a father figure. I can never forget what he has done in my life. Some people just play unforgettable roles in your life. Prof did it in mine. I came back to the residency program after a 10-year break to attend to important family matters. Things went smoothly until a few months to my part 2. Then my supervisor, senior friend and motivator, Professor Inyo died suddenly. I was totally devastated and literally gave up on specializing. But the good Lord had another angel waiting in the person of Professor Akinkugbe, a medical icon. I remain eternally grateful to him, who despite his global stature and responsibilities, took over the supervision of my dissertations, both in NASA Ayodele died. I had lost long sight of the dream of specializing, and in his characteristic humble manner, he came down from the 3rd floor to the staff clinic where I was consulting at the time. When I sighted him from afar, I got up and walked up to him. Prof, what can I do for you? He said, Funke, no, I came to see you. I said, see me, sir? He said, yes. He said, I know how you must feel with your passing on suddenly like that. We are all sad about it. I will supervise you. Just imagine a renowned professor leaving his office to come to me in the staff clinic, tucked away, where I had resigned myself to offer to supervise me.
The rest is history. The quality of his supervision is unparalleled. When I have an appointment to see him, I make sure I'm there 5 minutes before, because Prof will be at the door on the dot of time. I will open the door, Funke, come in. He will, when we get in, he will pull out the chair, make sure I sit down before he walks around to his own seat. Can you imagine that? He never made you uncomfortable. He never lorded himself over you. He had continued throughout to supervise me. And he became so fond of my family, my husband, my children. He would jokingly ask me, how is my colleague? Do you know who this colleague is? My daughter. He had left so many positive impacts on me. He nominated me for the Academy of Science. He continued to support me openly, behind the scene, anywhere. I had free access to his library. I was in shock when I learned he passed away. I saw it coming, but I couldn't accept it. You know, some things just are not acceptable. I felt he would always be there to go to him for counseling, to joke with, to talk with. He would bring himself to my house to speak with my husband. Even when I was promoted professor, Prof came to congratulate me. I cannot continue to mention. For me, it's a personal loss, but I'm sure you will be comforted. God himself will send a paraclete to comfort you. And for the children and grandchildren, the Lord is with you. I thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you very much indeed. We have gradually come to the end of this night of tribute. And I would like to invite our second president, ICOMAA Worldwide, Emeritus Professor Oluwole Akande, to kindly give a closing remark. Emeritus Professor Akande, sir.
Well, thank you very much. It's a night of celebration of a fulfilled life that has touched so many other lives. A lot have been said this evening. In fact, what has been said is only the tip of our iceberg, because Emeritus Professor Oladipo Olujimi Akinkugbe is not only a mentor to me and to many others to my family, but a friend, a brother. And his illustrious life is just wonderful. He's touched many lives. His humility has been mentioned, and the great role he has played in the history of the health and education in Nigeria is unquantifiable. All I can say is that as we mourn his departure from this mortal life, we celebrate his distinguished, fulfilled, and illustrious and dedicated life in service of humanity. And in particular, we will always cherish his mentorship and kindness to so many people, including my own family. We pray that the good Lord will console the family, the wife, Professor Mrs. Folashade Akinkugbe, the children, Olumide and Kayode Akinkugbe, and the extended Akinkugbe family. The legacy he has left behind is going to remain eternally. We will miss him, we love him, but God loves him best. So thank you very much for everyone who has participated this evening. We thank you all for your contribution. The good Lord will continue to bless the College of Medicine, the University of Ibadan, the country itself that Professor Akinkugbe has served so selflessly and so dedicatedly. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, sir, for that closing remark. Emeritus Prof has thanked every one of us, and sincerely speaking, ICOMAA Worldwide is so grateful to all of us for attending this night of tribute. I'm sure if you have another 2.5 hours, we'll still be talking a lot about Prof. Like he has been described, he is a man of many parts, so many things to so many people. We cannot thank God enough for his life. We cannot thank his family enough for giving us Professor Akinkugbe as a gift to many lives that he has touched in so many ways. On the final note, I would like to invite the Provost-elect of the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, Professor Olayinka Emigbodu, to please close the session for us. Thank you, ma'am. Professor Emigbodu, ma'am. Well, I guess I think she's not online anymore. ICOMAA Worldwide President, ma'am. Sir, Professor Adini. Okay, thank you very much. Well, I think it's just important for me at this juncture to say thank you to everyone once again. We sincerely appreciate your presence from the beginning of this meeting till now. It's been so rewarding and it's been so great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We cannot thank you enough, but on behalf of all members of ICOMAA Worldwide, scattered all over the world, I say thank you for attending this night of tributes, and please stay connected to the family as the final program begins tomorrow morning. Also, please don't forget the family in your prayers. We're so grateful. Thank you. Have a lovely evening from this part of the world, and have a great day in the other part of the world where they're just waking up. Thank you once again, and God bless you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chesson. God bless you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless the family and console them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you, everyone. God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Oluwashola.
Thank you, ma.
Well done.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was great to attend.
Thank you, Dr. Oluwashola.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Jeshino, thank you for attending.
Professor Adeni, ICOMAA President, well done, fantastic.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you very much, ma. Thank you for your support, ma. God bless you, ma.
Good night. God bless you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Prof, well done. Well done, ma.
Thank you. Thank you, ma.
Okay, oh, that's good.
Dr. Jeshino has Alabama.
It's nice.
Yes. Thank you to my teachers and others.
How are you doing?
I'm good. So good to see you.
Good evening, ma.
Thank you very much. How are you?
Very fine, thank you.
Nice to see you.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful meeting, though.
I need to find, let me do this.
Dr. Toby Coker, thank
Dr.
you for
Sinobi,
attending.
I'm sending you a private chat right now.
Okay, my dear. Okay. Okay, okay, my dear. Right. Oh, I sent to I sent to God bless you. Bye.
Jason, well done. Good job.
Bye.
Dr. Tomikoka, my apologies for not recognizing you, ma'am.
All right, so I'm going to sign off. It's been wonderful to be here.
That's okay, Dr. Jeshino. Nice connecting back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, have a great day.
You too. Have a wonderful night.
Bye. Dr. Coker, good evening.
Hello.
Apologies for not recognizing you. I just saw your name so neat.
It's all right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Thank you for joining us.
it's fine. I'm just typing my message. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. Thank you so
Well
much.
done. Well
Thank
done.
you. I hope you are coping well with this COVID-19 crisis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I know you did a great job considering the closeness of Lagos to Ogun State.
We're
So
grateful.
well commendable. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Have a great evening.
And you too.
And regards to His Excellency.
Will do.
Bye.
Bye-bye.